They laughed at him, because if his idea failed, the entire German army would be trapped and destroyed in days. And what made it worse was that he was right. In late 1939, as Europe slid toward another catastrophic war, the German High Command believed it had already solved the problem of France. Their invasion plan looked safe, logical, and familiar. German armies would attack through Belgium and the Netherlands, just as they had in 1914. French and British forces would move forward to meet them. A massive clash would decide the campaign. To most of the generals in Berlin, this felt comfortable, predictable, controlled. But one officer saw disaster coming. Erich von Manstein was not the loudest man in the room, nor the most politically connected. What he was, however, was dangerously perceptive. He had served on the general staff during World War I and had watched brilliant plans collapse because they lacked imagination. Now, studying the maps of Western Europe in the winter of 1939, he recognized the same fatal flaw returning. Germany was about to attack exactly where the enemy expected. The French army was not unprepared. It was large, experienced, and confident. Its doctrine assumed the Germans would strike through Belgium, and its best units were ready to move north the moment the invasion began. The British Expeditionary Force stood beside them. Manstein understood what this meant. Germany would not achieve a quick victory. It would bleed itself against prepared defenses, and time favored the Allies. Germany could not afford a long war, so Manstein asked a question that few dared to ask: what if the obvious plan was the wrong one? The answer lay in a region the Allies barely considered worth defending: the Ardennes forest. Dense woodland, narrow roads, hills, rivers, and deep valleys. French doctrine labeled it unsuitable for large mechanized forces. Their planners believed tanks could not pass through it quickly, if at all. As a result, the area was lightly defended. To the French, the Ardennes was a wall. To Manstein, it was an invitation. His idea was radical. Instead of sending Germany's armored divisions north, he proposed sending them south, directly through the Ardennes. Once through, they would cross the Meuse River near Sedan, break out into open terrain, and race west toward the English Channel. If successful, the Allied armies advancing into Belgium would be cut off from behind. Encircled, isolated, destroyed. This was not a battle plan. It was a trap. When Manstein first presented this idea to senior officers in late 1939, the reaction was immediate and dismissive. They laughed, some mocked the terrain. Others warned of traffic jams stretching for miles. Many argued that French aircraft would annihilate the columns. One general said openly that the plan was gambling the entire German army on a single roll of the dice. And they weren't wrong. The risk was enormous. If French reconnaissance discovered the armored movement, bombers could turn the Ardennes into a graveyard of burning vehicles. One destroyed bridge or blocked road could trap thousands of men and machines with no room to maneuver. The German High Command rejected the plan. Manstein refused to let it die. He revised it, resubmitted it, argued for it again. Each time it was blocked before reaching Hitler. General Franz Halder, chief of the General Staff, saw Manstein as a dangerous nuisance. He believed the army needed discipline, not imagination. Manstein's persistence irritated him and threatened the authority of the planning staff, so Halder removed him. In January 1940, Manstein was reassigned far from Berlin, stripped of influence, and placed in a field command that effectively silenced him. The message was unmistakable. The plan was dead. Then fate intervened. On January 10, 1940, a German courier aircraft carrying invasion documents crashed in Belgium. The Allies recovered the papers and immediately realized Germany intended to attack through Belgium. The original plan was compromised. Panic spread through the German High Command. Now they needed an alternative, and suddenly Manstein's rejected idea resurfaced. This time it reached Hitler. On February 17, Manstein was summoned to explain his concept in person. He spoke calmly, without theatrics. He explained that the Ardennes was not impassable, merely ignored. That speed would replace security. That surprise would replace protection. Most importantly, he explained that the Allied armies would advance exactly where expected, straight into the jaws of encirclement. Hitler listened carefully. Then he made his decision. This is what I have been looking for. Against the advice of most of his generals, Hitler approved the plan. The laughter stopped. Fear replaced it. Because now, the plan was no longer theoretical. German armored divisions began quietly repositioning south. Tanks, fuel trucks, engineers, artillery, all moved toward the Ardennes. The greatest gamble of the campaign was about to begin. If it worked, the Allies would be trapped. If it failed, Germany would lose the war in weeks, and the men ordered to carry it out understood one terrifying truth: there would be no second chances. When the order finally came down in early May 1940, there was no ceremony, no speech, no reassurance. German armored units simply received new movement instructions, sealed orders, and unfamiliar routes marked on their maps. The destination was not Belgium, it was the Ardennes. For many officers, the realization was unsettling. The forest had a reputation, not just among the French, but within the German army itself. It was the kind of terrain planners avoided, not embraced. Yet now entire panzer divisions were being funneled toward it, along with thousands of trucks carrying fuel, ammunition, bridges, and repair equipment. The success of the entire campaign rested on a single assumption that speed and surprise would outweigh geography. On May 10, 1940, at dawn, the invasion of Western Europe began. German forces stormed into the Netherlands and Belgium, seizing bridges, airfields, and road junctions. The attacks were loud, aggressive, and highly visible. They were designed to be seen. The Allies reacted exactly as Manstein had predicted. French and British forces surged north to meet the invasion, moving their best units toward Belgium. Entire armies advanced away from the center of the front. The Ardennes, lightly defended and already considered irrelevant, became even more exposed. Behind the spectacle in the north, the real operation unfolded quietly. German armored columns entered the Ardennes. What followed was not a smooth advance, but a test of endurance, discipline, and luck. The roads were worse than expected. Narrow, twisting roads forced vehicles into single-file movement. Traffic jams stretched for kilometers. A single breakdown could halt an entire column. Engineers worked constantly, reinforcing bridges that groaned under the weight of tanks never meant to cross them. Inside the forest, chaos lurked just beneath the surface. Drivers slept beside idling engines. Officers shouted instructions through clouds of exhaust. Fuel trucks inched forward under strict orders never to stop unless absolutely necessary. Military police stood at intersections like traffic controllers, directing convoys through villages barely wide enough to contain them. The greatest fear was not mechanical failure. It was discovery. If French reconnaissance aircraft detected the scale of the movement, bombing raids could devastate the columns. Packed tightly together, surrounded by trees, and unable to disperse, the armored force was dangerously exposed. One successful air attack could ignite fuel trucks and block roads, trapping everything behind them. For days, the German advance depended on something no plan could guarantee Allied hesitation. French reconnaissance pilots did notice signs. Dust clouds rose above forest canopies. Reports of unusual traffic patterns reached command posts. Some officers expressed concern. But doctrine intervened. The Ardennes had been written off years earlier. Evidence that contradicted this belief was treated as error or exaggeration. No decisive action followed. By May 12, German armored units reached the edge of the forest. Ahead lay the Meuse River, wide, calm, and heavily symbolic. It represented the last major natural barrier before open country. French commanders believed it would slow the Germans long enough to restore order. They underestimated both the speed of the German advance and the fragility of their own defenses. On May 13, German artillery opened fire along the Meuse near Sedan. Stuka dive bombers followed, descending almost vertically and releasing bombs with terrifying precision. The psychological effect was immediate. French units, many composed of reservists, were shaken by the violence of the attack. Communications broke down, orders became confused. German infantry crossed the river in rubber assault boats under heavy fire. Casualties were significant, but momentum mattered more than losses. Small bridgeheads formed on the far bank. Engineers rushed forward, assembling pontoon bridges under artillery fire. Every minute was critical. This was the point at which the entire operation could still collapse. If French armored reserves launched a coordinated counterattack immediately, the bridgeheads could be crushed. German infantry would be isolated on the far bank. The tanks, still trapped on the eastern side of the river, would be useless spectators. But again, hesitation proved fatal. French command structures were slow and fragmented. Reports arrived late. Decisions required approval from multiple levels. Counterattacks were planned delayed, and then executed piecemeal. By the time French armor moved, German tanks were already crossing the river. Once armor reached the far bank, the balance shifted rapidly. German units expanded the bridgeheads, pushing deeper into French territory. French defensive positions collapsed under pressure. Counterattacks lacked coordination and were destroyed in detail. By the evening of May 14, the breakthrough at Sedan was complete. The German armored spearhead now faced a different endangered success. The advance moved faster than supply lines could keep up. Fuel shortages appeared almost immediately. Crews siphoned gasoline from abandoned vehicles. Captured French depots were seized before they could be destroyed. Maintenance crews worked non-stop to keep engines operational. The German command faced a dilemma. Stopping would allow the French to regroup. Continuing risked overextension. General Heinz Guderian, commanding the main armored thrust, chose momentum. He believed stopping would doom the operation. Against orders to consolidate, he pushed forward relentlessly, bypassing resistance and leaving isolated enemy units behind. This decision caused friction within the German command. Senior officers accused Guderian of recklessness. Orders were issued demanding he slow down. Heated arguments erupted over radio and telephone. At one point, Guderian threatened to resign rather than halt his advance. But the results spoke louder than the objections. As German tanks surged westward, French command collapsed into confusion. Units reported German armor behind their lines. Refugees clogged roads, blocking military movement. Communication lines were overwhelmed. By May 16, the scale of the disaster became clear. The German breakthrough was not shallow. It was deep, fast, and widening. Entire French units were retreating without orders. Some abandoned positions without firing a shot. Morale plummeted. On May 20, German tanks reached the English Channel near Abbeville. The strategic implications were enormous. Allied armies in Belgium, British, French, and Belgian forces were now cut off from the rest of France. Their supply lines were severed. Their retreat routes were threatened. Over 1 million men faced encirclement. What Manstein had envisioned months earlier was now reality. The Allies had advanced exactly as predicted. The Ardennes had been crossed faster than anyone believed possible. The Meuse had been forced before reserves could respond. The armored thrust had reached the sea. The trap was closing. But the German position was still fragile. The corridor to the coast was narrow. The armored units were stretched thin. Supply lines ran dangerously close to enemy-held territory. If the Allies launched a powerful, coordinated counterattack against the base of the breakthrough, they could sever the corridor and trap the German spearhead. For several days, that outcome remained possible. Allied commanders debated their response. Some called for an immediate counterattack. Others focused on stabilizing defenses farther north. Confusion and disagreement slowed decision-making. The Germans pressed their advantage. Infantry divisions followed the armored spearhead, widening the corridor and securing flanks. Bridges were reinforced. Defensive positions were established. The window for an Allied counterattack narrowed with each passing hour. By the time a serious attempt was made, the opportunity had passed. The Allied armies in Belgium were now in grave danger. Retreat routes were limited. Supply shortages mounted. Pressure increased from all sides. The trap, once theoretical, was now tightening. And as the situation deteriorated, a single decision, made at the highest level of German command, would determine whether the encirclement ended in total destruction or one of the most dramatic escapes in military history. As German armored units reached the English Channel in late May 1940, the meaning of what had happened began to settle in across Allied headquarters like a slow, suffocating fog. What had initially seemed like a dangerous but containable breakthrough now revealed itself as something far worse. The Allied front had not merely been pierced, it had been split apart. British, French, and Belgian armies advancing into Belgium suddenly found themselves isolated from the rest of France. Their supply lines were severed. Their rear areas were no longer safe. German tanks were behind them, not in front. The assumption that had guided Allied planning, that the main German effort would come from the north, had become a trap of their own making. For the men on the ground, the realization came in fragments. Orders arrived late or contradicted earlier instructions. Units were told to hold positions already bypassed by German armor. Reports of enemy tanks appearing in unexpected places spread panic. Refugees clogged roads in every direction, blocking military movement and cutting communication lines. In Paris, confusion turned into alarm. French commanders struggled to regain control. Maps were updated constantly, but reality moved faster than ink. General Maurice Gamelin, commander-in-chief of French forces, could not reconcile reports of German armor reaching the coast with the assumptions that underpinned his entire strategy. The idea that the Ardennes had served as the main axis of advance still felt unreal, but it was real. On May 21, Allied forces attempted to strike back. A counterattack near Arras, led primarily by British units, aimed to cut into the German corridor and disrupt the armored spearhead. For a brief moment, the attack caused panic among German units. Heavily armored British tanks advanced against thin German defenses, and some German commanders feared the breakthrough might be severe. But the counterattack lacked coordination and scale. It was too small too late. German forces quickly recovered, deploying artillery and anti-aircraft guns in direct fire roles. The British attack stalled and then collapsed. The window for breaking the encirclement closed. Inside the Allied pocket, the situation deteriorated rapidly. Ammunition shortages mounted. Fuel became scarce. Morale suffered as units realized retreat routes were disappearing. Some French commanders called for an immediate withdrawal toward the coast. Others insisted on holding ground. Coordination between British and French forces weakened under pressure. Lord Gort, commander of the British Expeditionary Force, faced an impossible decision. Continuing to fight southward toward France risked annihilation. Waiting for French coordination risked paralysis. Without explicit approval from higher command, he ordered British forces to begin withdrawing toward the port of Dunkirk. It was a decision driven by survival. At the same time, German commanders faced their own dilemma. The encirclement was almost complete. German armored units stood within striking distance of Dunkirk. From a purely military perspective, the opportunity was extraordinary. Destroying the trapped Allied armies could end Britain's ability to continue the war. Yet the German command hesitated. Concerns mounted about overextension. The terrain near Dunkirk was marshy and crisscrossed with canals, poor ground for tanks. Supply lines were stretched thin. Some commanders feared a sudden Allied counterstroke against the narrow corridor, linking the armored spearhead to the rest of the army. Then came the decision that would define the end of the campaign. On May 24, Adolf Hitler ordered the panzer divisions to halt. The reasons remain debated. Some argue Hitler wanted to preserve his armored forces. Others believe he feared a trap. Some suggest he hoped allowing British forces to escape might encourage Britain to seek peace. Whatever the motivation, the effect was immediate. The German armored advance toward Dunkirk paused. For the Allies, the pause was a lifeline. British and French forces scrambled to establish defensive positions around the port. Engineers fortified perimeters. Rearguards fought delaying actions. Meanwhile, across the English Channel, the British government launched Operation Dynamo, an emergency evacuation of the trapped army. What followed became one of the most famous episodes of the war. From May 26 to June 4, ships of every kind crossed the channel. Warships, ferries, fishing boats, civilian vessels, anything that could float was pressed into service. Under constant threat from air attack and artillery, they ferried soldiers from the beaches of Dunkirk back to Britain. The evacuation was chaotic and costly. Ships were sunk. Aircraft were lost. Thousands of men were killed or captured. But against all expectations, more than 330,000 Allied soldiers were evacuated. The British Army survived. For Germany, the escape was a strategic disappointment, but not a disaster. France itself was collapsing. With the northern armies removed from the equation, German forces turned south to finish the campaign. In early June, German units resumed their advance. French defenses, already strained, could not hold. The government fled Paris, refugees streamed south, morale collapsed. On June 14, German troops entered Paris without resistance. 6 days later, France signed an armistice. The war in the West was over. In just 6 weeks, one of Europe's most powerful nations had been defeated. The speed of the collapse stunned the world. Analysts searched for explanations: superior tanks, air power, leadership failures, but beneath all of it lay the same truth. The outcome had been decided months earlier, when Erich von Manstein looked at a map and chose not to attack where everyone expected. His idea had been mocked because it defied convention. It challenged doctrine. It relied on speed, risk, and surprise rather than caution and mass. It demanded perfect execution and offered no safety net. But it exploited something far more powerful than firepower: assumption. The Allies assumed the Ardennes was impassable. They assumed Germany would repeat 1914. They assumed doctrine was reality. Manstein understood that assumptions are vulnerabilities. By attacking through what the enemy ignored, he forced the Allies to fight a war they had not prepared for and could not adapt to in time. The plan trapped an entire army not because it was complex, but because it was unexpected. In the years after the war, Manstein's role in the campaign became clearer. Documents surfaced. Testimonies confirmed what many German officers already knew. The breakthrough through the Ardennes, the decisive maneuver of the Battle of France, had been his concept. Yet his legacy remained complicated. Manstein would go on to command major forces on the Eastern Front, achieving remarkable operational successes. But he also served a regime responsible for immense crimes, and his willingness to separate military professionalism from moral responsibility would shadow his reputation forever. Still, from a purely strategic perspective, his idea reshaped modern warfare. It demonstrated that wars could be decided not by gradual attrition, but by rapid dislocation. That speed could replace security. That surprise could replace numerical advantage. Most importantly, it showed that the most dangerous plans are often the ones that feel uncomfortable, the ones that challenge assumptions rather than reinforce them. The generals who laughed at Manstein were not foolish men. They were experienced, intelligent, and cautious. But caution in 1940 was exactly what doomed them. The Ardennes breakthrough did not succeed because it was safe. It succeeded because it was bold. And in war, as in history, boldness often decides who survives and who is trapped.